On the next all-new episode of Unicorn Warriors Eternal.
Who is that?
A Lady Fox. She has powers. She might be the evil we've been fighting against.
Oh no!
Unicorn Warriors Eternal. Thursday at midnight on Adult Swim.
The following program may contain coarse language, suggestive dialogue, and discussion of violent imagery and sexual situations. It is intended for mature listeners who can tell the difference between facts and opinions.
Welcome to the Toonami Faithful Podcast. My name is Paul Pescrillo, the founder of ToonamiFaithful.com, and this is not a normal podcast episode for us because we're doing something new called Off Topic. Basically, we're talking about something other than Toonami, and on this Off Topic episode, we're talking about Picard Season 3. And I thought this would be a perfect way to kind of do something new, something every once in a while that's off the topic of Toonami, because let's face facts, the block has been a little slow this year. But when I do a podcast, I'm never alone. So with me tonight is...
Hey everyone, it's LaserKid.
And yeah, Laser's excited to talk about this too, because we both have been watching this.
Oh yeah,
and,
we've been bouncing back and forth every week on this one.
Yes, we have. And it was really good. I mean, I have my issues.
Yeah. Well, it's not perfect, but I liked it.
But, you know, we're going to kind of just get into it and talk about it and give our opinions. And then, you know, at the end, if somebody wants to chime in after listening to this podcast and let us know their thoughts and want us to do more of these off topics, please, you know, do let us know that. But obviously, before we start, we should say spoiler alert, because
yes, get that red alert going, because we're gonna go.
Yes, red alert. Territory. I might have to put that sound in here. Red alert.
Please do. I think that would be amazing.
Now, which one I choose? That's gonna be the interesting thing. But
even I won't know.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, so let's talk. Let's just get into it. So Star Trek Picard 3 basically starts off with Picard and assumingly his new girlfriend, because this was his maid for the first two seasons, basically, or his assistant, or whatever you want to call her. Because I'm still a little confused about what Laris really was. I think she was just his assistant, pretty much helping him.
You would know more than me. I'm that guy that went from not watching it at all to, oh my god, this season's amazing.
Laser hasn't even seen the first two seasons.
And I will probably never will.
I will. Well, first of all, I'm going to make you watch the first two seasons, at least season 1, because you need to.
Oh, okay. I had always been told that those and Discovery were really bad, and I was given good reasons why they're bad, and so I just kind of like. Strange New Worlds is good though. I like that.
I'll be honest with you, like, season 1 wasn't bad. It was okay. I haven't seen season 2 because I have heard it's bad. I've seen pieces of it, but I need to watch it now, especially after watching this. Ironically, I had this conversation with you over DM that I think they could have done something a little bit differently.
Oh yeah, there are certainly some things that, you know, you could do differently, things that I would have done differently, but I've still liked it a lot.
Yeah, so basically what happens in this season, so like I was saying, Laris is his assistant, whatever she is. You know, seemingly this is his girlfriend now, because she really wanted to be with him after her husband had died. because as she said in season 2, which is one of the things I actually saw, was, when a Romulan loses somebody in their life, they lose their significant other. Basically, they honor them by finding somebody else to love. And obviously, Laris wanted Picard to be her love. And I know I'm rambling on about this a little bit, but it's important for me to kind of give this information, because especially with Laser not knowing.
Yeah, well, I didn't know all that, but I will say, even from an outsider perspective where I didn't bother, and unless you make me, which you seem to want to, which I might, I had no interest in the previous seasons, but I will say, she shows up in the first episode. It's clear there's a relationship of some kind. I did get romantic vibes between her and Picard. I did.
Yeah.
And then she's just like, "Sir, not appearing in this film."
Yeah, and we'll get to that more.
I would agree that is probably the biggest negative that this entire season has, which is hilarious. Since the rest of it is pretty much all positives.
And here's the thing, Laser. After season 1 and 2, especially season 2, you're gonna sit here and be scratching your head, going, "Okay, yeah, now this really pisses me off."
I believe you. So it makes sense that would be a problem.
So, what happens is Picard and her are planning to go to, I think it's Chintaka 4, was it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because Laris is helping. I believe that she's helping the Romulans rebuild, or doing some kind of work with the Romulans, because obviously she's a Romulan. And Picard is agreed to come along. He wants to kind of go on this new adventure with her. Obviously, clearly, there's some kind of romantic relationship going on here, and he wants to see where this goes. And then, of course, because the universe is the universe, and Captain Picard, Admiral Picard, whatever you want to call him at this point, it gets weird as we go through talking about this. But anyways, in relation to his rank, but Admiral Picard gets a signal on his old comm badge, and it's Beverly Crusher, who we find out none of the crew, including Picard, has talked to in
20 years.
20 years. All of a sudden contacts him, being very, very vague, and
no Starfleet.
No Starfleet can come and help us, but we need your help. And Picard goes to Laris and says, I don't know what to do with this. I haven't seen this girl in 20 years. Should I even fucking bother with this? That's kind of what he was basically feeling. And you know what? Fair point. So, and Laris is like, look, this is who we are. You have to go and see what this is all about. And Picard's like, okay, well, I'm going to be back in a couple days. And Laris gives him the look like, I don't think you're going to be back in a couple days, but
Laris still sitting there waiting for him.
Yes, probably. But see, you're jumping ahead, Laser. We can't jump ahead.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, all right. So Picard calls up Riker and basically meets him at a bar and says,
I love
which
that.
is funny, but he tells Will, hey, look, this is what's going on. I don't know what to do here. I don't even know. I'm just a retired admiral. What the hell can I do here? Because there's no way for me to, save her if I don't have a ship. Well, Will's like, listen, me and Troy are having some problems. So I want to do something to get my mind off of it, basically. I'm saying this in a funny way, but it really seems like that.
It does seem like that. And he also was just like, adventure.
Yeah, and it looked like he was like, all right, I need an adventure because whatever's going on between me and Troy, and they were very vague on what was going on, but
it definitely fills in later.
Yeah, it fills in a little bit later, but it still was kind of vague. Like, I think they were just fighting with each other or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, Will is like, okay, well, I have a plan. I have an idea. The Frontier Day is coming up. I think we can do something and get you a ship. also, Will was able to figure out the code that Beverly was sending to Picard in what she was saying, and basically, he finds out that they're in this system that's right outside of Federation space, is where she's located, and so obviously they need a ship, and Will makes arrangements for him and Captain, and I keep saying Captain because I'm so used to that, Admiral Picard, to go and do a shakedown cruise, so to speak.
We do meet a
with
new captain.
with the new USS Titan, which is a refit of the original. So this is the USS Titan A. Riker's ship was the USS Titan. This is basically a refit to what's called Neo Constitution class, and you can definitely tell it's a Constitution class because it kind of looks like the first Enterprise.
It does. It definitely has that vibe. I enjoyed it though. That was cool to have.
Yes. And you kind of look at that and you go, oh, yeah, that's interesting. And it becomes even more interesting when we get to the end of this whole thing that I'm talking about. So basically they tell Captain Shaw, hey, let's take the Titan to to this system that's just outside of Federation space. And Captain Shaw's like, no, fuck you, we're not doing that. I feel like there's something going on here. We're not doing that. Meanwhile, when they first came onto the ship, they were greeted by 7 of 9, who's now a commander. Captain Shaw prefers to call her Annika Hansen or Commander Hansen, her real name, not her Borg name. Which is interesting because later on, at the end of the season, there's this, and we'll talk about that too. He gives this like rave review of her, and it's like, okay, all right. But anyways,
it makes sense to me, but I'll get there when we get there.
Right. So, and don't worry, we're gonna get a little bit. I'm not gonna go over every single episode. I'm just gonna kind of give
there's so much.
There's so much. I just want to kind of get this big part out of the way and then kind of be a little bit quicker about the synopsis. But basically, 7 of 9's like, what the hell are you guys up to? What are you trying to do? And, Admiral Picard tells her, this is what's up. This is why we need the Titan to take us here, because we need to figure out what's going on with Beverly Crusher. Well, unbeknownst to them, 7 of 9 has taken the Titan to the system. I can't remember, Rigel system, I want to say.
Oh, gosh.
I think it was the Rigel system, yeah.
I know they end up in the totally original, not a fun name, the Metallo system at one point.
Yeah, so whatever the system is, because they talk about 50 different systems and it makes my head spin.
I honestly don't remember which one's which anymore.
So what happens is she basically brings them there and she says, look, you got like 5 minutes to get to a shuttle and do what you got to, get off the ship. Because, I'm not going to be responsible I'm not going to get yelled at for this, or I don't really care, but I did what you asked. Here you go. And, I hate to say this, but technically 7 of 9 was following orders. So it's not she was listening to an admiral, even though the admiral's retired. So, I mean, you can't, I don't know why like Captain Shaw's all pissed and wanted to report her
because he told her no.
Well, right. So.
And he told her no and she's like, I'm just going to do what I want anyway.
Right. So basically what happens is they take a shuttle over to Beverly Crusher's ship, and they find Beverly Crusher in, and I guess we can relate this to Toonami, into some kind of Saiyan regeneration pod or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not a regeneration pod. It's just to sustain her life, basically.
A cryostasis pod or some shit.
Yeah. So, and then all of a sudden, this other individual shows up, and was trying to like, trying to stop Riker and Picard, and we come to realize this is Beverly's son. His name is Jack Crusher.
Done. Yeah, we saw the Jack Crusher name in the first episode in one of the first shots, and I'm like, oh, is this a flashback? Yeah. Oh no, this is a new Jack Crusher.
Yes. So, Will looks at Picard, and you can tell that he's like, wait a minute, is this what I think it is? But obviously that isn't talked about, because all of a sudden the bad guy shows up, and her name is Vadic, and she has these, I want to say, weird looking, I wanted to say samurai looking people, because that's what they were dressed in, at least it looked like it.
Yeah. I do like how Vadic is referred to later as the monologuing protoplasm, but
but she has this warship, which is,
I love that they used the V'ger sound effects for that. That was great. For a minute, I thought that thing was V'ger. I'm like, no. And
so she's basically like, look, you need to hand over Jack Crusher. I'm sending over these guys, and you need to, give me Jack Crusher, or I'm going to kill everybody. They get onto they destroy the shuttle that's on top of Beverly's ship, and then they come onto the ship, and basically there's basically a firefight. And just as, things look to be going south, so to speak, the Titan shows up and beams over everybody. Basically Vadic's like, look, you have like an hour to give up Jack Crusher, or I'm going to destroy your ship. Well, and because she's got a warship, well, I think she can get what she wants done. So, basically, they're trying to figure out, okay, why do they want Jack? Why do they want him? What's so special about Jack Crusher? Well, meanwhile, in the bay, in the medical bay, they're bringing Crusher back to life, basically healing her. And Will's like is saying to Beverly, like, what is going on here? Like, why do they want your son? And, without really saying too much, she basically indicates that this is Picard's son.
I mean, it was pretty obvious, but
yeah.
I do really like this, because this is a good continuation of a plot thread from Generations where his whole family is just like wiped out. Well, now he's got more family.
So, meanwhile, Jack is trying everything he can to get off of this ship, so that way nobody gets hurt and, all that wonderful stuff. And, basically, Picard is still like clueless on the bridge, sitting here going, I still don't know why Vadic wants, Vadic wants Jack. Like, what is this all about? And Will brings Beverly on the bridge. Picard looks at her, and she like puts her head down and then starts shaking her head, like acknowledging, like, yeah, this is your kid. And Picard's like, oh, okay, that's it. Battle stations, let's just fight this ship and get the hell out of here. And that basically ends the first part of, I guess it would be episode 1, but then episode 2 is where they basically get into the battle with them. Basically what happens is during the battle, and by the way, I feel bad for Captain Shaw because this isn't the first time that happens. During the battle between Vadic's ship, and the Titan, basically, they get, he gets hurt in the battle. So then he gives command to Will Riker. So now Captain Will Riker is captaining the Titan again. And what happens is he tries to get away. And by the way, this is what I'm talking about happens from episode 1 to episode 4. Basically, they're trying to get away. And what happens is when they think they're about to get away, Vadic's ship, which is called the Shrife, basically has this weapon from the Daystrom Institute that opens up portals. So every time that the ship would almost get away, they would shoot a portal in front of the ship. It would go into the portal, and then an opening would come back, and it would be right in front of the Shrike, and then the Shrike would have its way with the ship, basically, which was so fucked up, might I add.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while this is all going on, Rafi is off on this weird planet with like a bunch of...
She's on, let's be honest here, she's on Coruscant.
I wasn't going to say that, but yes, that's what...
Well, let's be honest here. She's hanging out over in Star Wars town.
Yeah, let's just say it that way. There's a bunch of bad guys everywhere. There's clubs, there's bars, whatever. You get the picture.
She's going to go buy some death sticks.
And why this is important, when I say this, is going to make things a little bit clearer. So, basically, she's part of Starfleet Intelligence. They sent her on a mission to find out why a portal device, hint, hint, was stolen from the Daystrom Institute. And her handler, who we don't know who that person is yet, basically is telling her, look, you need to find out what's going on here. And one of the people that she meets on Coruscant, we'll just call it Coruscant at this point, she basically says, or this guy basically says to her, it has to do with the Red Lady. That's all I know, blah, 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 blah. She figures out eventually that the Red Lady is this statue that's at one of the recruitment centers on a different planet. So she takes the ship that we've seen for the first 2 seasons over to this planet with the recruitment center, and all of a sudden this portal opens up below it. The recruitment center goes through it.
We have portals again.
And then gets dumped onto the planet. So now she's sitting here going, what the hell is going on? So now we come back to what I was just talking about with the portals. Well, we figure out that the Shrife basically did this to that recruitment center. And we find out a little bit later what that was supposed to do. But basically, the Shrife eventually gets its way, and the Titan is disabled, and they're in this nebula, mind you. I hadn't said that yet. And they basically...
they basically relived Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, well, not Wrath of Khan, but it was more or less like they thought that they were in some kind of living creature to the point of where...
Part. Yeah, no, that gives me Farpoint vibes.
So they basically fall into, which they thought was a creature, but it was deeper into this nebula. And William Rikers basically says to Picard, "This is your fault. We're dead because of you, because you made bad decisions. Now, whatever." But then eventually,
really interesting to see Riker and Picard biting each other's heads off, because that is not normal.
That wasn't normal. So basically, what happens is, they eventually figure out that around them are these small little creatures that are coming to life, and they're emanating this energy that the Titan can use to restart the engines and everything. Also, while this was all going on, a changeling out of nowhere puts a device on the engine or somewhere on the engine, and it blows up, which also causes the Titan to have issues as well. Jack gets beat up, and luckily they're able to bring Jack back from almost dying. And so we sit there and go, wait a minute, changelings, what's going on here? And come to find out, Vadic is a changeling, and all the men on her ship, men, women, whatever, are changelings as well. So this rogue faction of the changelings is for some reason attacking the Federation. But back to what was happening with the Titan, basically what happens is they're able to use the energy from these creatures that are starting to come to life and are able to bring the ship back up to power, have everything going, and they're able to escape and disable Vadic's ship, the Shrife, and get away. Also, in these first episodes, we go back to Rafi, and basically what happens is she tries to do something else to find out more information after her handler said, no, you're done. You don't need to do this anymore. And she gets herself into some trouble to where her handler has to come and save the day. And we come to find out.
Cue amazing clean-on music.
Yes, we come to find out that Worf is her handler and saved her life. And when I mean save her life, he has this huge fucking sword that he just lops everybody's heads off with, which is awesome.
Oh,
and
man.
I can't
Seeing
describe
Worf
this.
Actually kick ass. Oh man, that was so.
And
nice.
I can't describe this any better. You have to see it yourself.
Amen.
Because there's no way I can describe this. So basically, together, him and Rafi, they figure out, look, we got to find somebody to give us information on what's going on. And they were able to capture this one dude who actually ends up being a changeling. And that's how we find out that, oh my God, there's changelings involved.
Well, apparently, Worf's good friend Odo tipped him off to the rogue faction.
Yes. So, Worf and Rafi try to find this, I believe it's a Vulcan. Yeah, it is a Vulcan. And, after some convincing maneuvering and Worf almost getting killed, they're able to capture him, kill all of his men, capture him, and get a device that allows them to sneak into Daystrom Institute. Because what we learn is that these changelings were able to get into Daystrom Institute and steal the portal device. But the thing is they also find out that the portal device was kind of a distraction. So them killing the 130 people in that recruitment center was just a distraction for something else that they stole from the Daystrom Institute. So basically what happens is Rafi and Worf meet up with the Titan, Captain Riker and Admiral Picard. They tell them all this. They tell them, hey, we need to break into the Institute to figure out what the hell was actually stolen besides the portal gun or portal weapon, whatever you want to call it. And they come up with this plan to they basically come up with this plan to get into Daystrom Institute and figure out what's going on. Just before this happens, before Worf comes on board with Rafi, the Titan is, and which is a great scene, mind you, because this is the first time that we actually see bots repairing a ship. The Titan is stopped in space somewhere where they're repairing themselves with the bots that they have, and Captain Shaw says, "Oh, by the way, I contacted the Federation and said, hey, this is what's going on. Can you come get these guys because they're violating the rules?" And all of a sudden, the ship shows up another Federation ship shows up out of nowhere. And lo and behold, on that ship is a Next Generation character.
I did not expect to see her.
I did not expect to see her either. Again, spoiler alert, red alert, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Danger, danger, Will Robinson.
Ro Laren, or should I say Commander Ro Laren, comes on board with 2 security guards, and she's supposed to take Admiral Picard and Captain Riker into custody along with Jack Crusher, and I would assume Beverly Crusher as well. But she basically takes Picard aside. They have an argument because if you guys remember from the Next Generation series, the last time that we see Ro Laren, she betrays the Enterprise and joins the Maquis. And as a result, they get away. And, that pisses off Picard because this was Picard's pupil.
Well,
this was like...
He believed in her even though she had previously been Maquis. And then she, oh yeah, by the way, I'm totally going back anyway, screw you.
Right. So, what we find out is Ro Laren, well, first of all, Ro and her have this interesting conversation, and they, I would say they kind of reconciled.
Yeah.
Again, this is, I don't want to explain it because A, it's going to be boring, but B, you should kind of see it for yourself. But basically we find out that Ro Laren was the one that sent Worf, and then Worf obviously was Rafi's handler to find out what was going on. Also, there's a reason that Ro was using a shuttle instead of beaming over to the Titan because she's finding out.
You're getting way ahead of yourself now.
Well, I'm not getting ahead of myself just yet, but basically she tells Picard, listen, there's something going on. I don't have all the ducks in the row, so to speak, but you need to be careful. And she basically before leaving gives him her earring. And she leaves in the shuttle that she came in to go back to the other ship. And on the way there, we come to find out that the 2 security guards that are with her are, surprise, surprise, changelings. They plant a bomb on her shuttle and leave and beam off the shuttle.
Yeah, that's great.
Ro can't, the device that's on there, she can't beam off the ship. She can't remove the device. So she says her goodbyes to Picard and takes the shuttle and rams it into one of the nacelles of the ship, causing it to kind of, not spiral, but kind of lose its maneuverability for a few minutes. And basically, come to find out, this ship is full of changelings, and also Ro had offloaded a lot of the Titan's crew, so there wasn't that many people on there, which I think she did on purpose. So basically Captain Will Riker's like, listen, Captain Shaw, here's the command back. By the way, we need to get the hell out of here. Well, no, that's a Federation ship. He's like, look at your eyes. They're powering up their weapons. And he's saying this as the ship is stabilizing itself and arming weapons. And Shaw's like, oh, fuck. Yeah, we got to get the hell out of here. So he jumps into warp as they're shooting him, and they don't get shot. They don't get destroyed. They just are able to get out of there. And then, like I said, they meet up with Worf and Rafi, and they figure out that, yeah, this is, this was Ro all along trying to get them to figure out what the hell's going on. One thing that I forgot that I should point out is there's a really interesting conversation between Picard and Crusher that happens. I believe it's in episode 2, where she explains why she left and why Jack never had any interactions with Picard. And throughout these episodes, you see them start to kind of talk to each other and get comfortable with each other. But, you know, basically Jack decided not to have anything to do with Picard. We kind of figure that out because in one of the episodes, you see Picard at a bar eating food by himself. I think that's Guidance Bar. And a bunch of...
Yeah, it's probably Guinan's Bar.
Bunch of Starfleet recruits come up and they, you know, because he is who he is, they ask him 50 questions. He talks about stuff. And, you know, Jack asked him a question and he responded. He asked him
about, did you ever want a family? He's like, I never needed a family.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Good job, Picard.
And after he says that response, basically Jack's disappears and Picard's like, oh fuck, okay, well I fucked that one up.
No, he didn't know. How was he supposed to?
Back to what we were talking about. So basically what happens is the Titan is running away from the Federation. They're dropping transponders to try to throw off these ships that are looking for them. Meanwhile, by the way, Federation ships are connected now, so basically no matter where this ship is, if another ship gets close to it, it can figure out where you are.
There's no reason why this would ever backfire.
No,
this isn't a terrible idea.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here, but
well,
yeah. So basically, they come up with this plan that, okay, we need to figure out. We need to get on to Daystrom Station and, you know, figure out what's going on. So, Will Riker, Worf, and Rafi decide to go over to Daystrom Station. They're able to beam on board, use this key to get in, and then they start searching for whatever they start searching for basically the manifest of Daystrom Station. Meanwhile, while they're doing that, the ships show up and the Titan has to leave because, you know, if they don't leave, then they're going to destroy it. Oh, by the way, if any of those weapons hits the Titan's hull that they're firing at them, they can track the Titan. So they're like, no, we got to get the hell out of here. And Picard comes up with this idea of, okay, well, I know where we can go. Let's go to the Fleet Museum. I love this episode. It's one of my favorite. Basically, they come to the Fleet Museum, which is pretty much every old ship that hasn't been destroyed that is important. The Enterprise A is there. The NX...
the Enterprise from
Enterprise is there, but it's the refit that we never got to see, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
Voyager's there.
That was so nice. I love that they even used the Voyager theme for that briefly.
Yes, and we'll get into that in just a second. The Defiant is there, which is great.
Oh yes.
And then we see some other ships. I swear to God, I saw the Prometheus there. For those of you that don't know what the Prometheus is, that's a ship that was in Voyager. It was an experimental ship that could split into 3 ships. Multi-vector mode. Oh, that was awesome. But anyways, I think I saw the USS Akira because that was one of the first Akira class ships. And there were some other ships there. The New Jersey was there too. Basically, the reason they came to the museum. Oh, and they're all centered around. They're all like connected to the old space dock that used to orbit Earth. So, if anybody was wondering while you're watching this, going, that space dock looks different than the ones that I've, remembered. Well, that's why, because the original space dock was moved.
And that may have been a blessing in disguise for later things.
Later on. So what happens, so the person that's running the Fleet Museum and why Picard went there was Geordi LaForge, Commodore Geordi LaForge. And Geordi comes on board with his other daughter. And by the way, I didn't say this, but Geordi has 2 daughters, one that is already on the Titan that's flying the ship. And, you know, I'm not going to go into what her is, but she's you know, she's a good character in this series. And again, I'm not going to give details because I can't give details about everything. But he comes on board with his other daughter and basically says, "What the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this?" You know what I mean? And Picard tells him what's going on. He's like, "Listen, you can't do this," you know? Meanwhile, 7 of 9 and Picard's son Jack are talking on the bridge, and they're looking at the individual ships. And there's this where because she's looking at the different ships, and it goes to Voyager, and she does this really touching speech about, you know, how this was my home. This, you know, this is where I found myself, blah, 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 blah. It's a really touching thing. Somebody made a video, and I can't remember where it was. I'd have to look back at my Twitter, but
it was very nice to see, you know, Seven have that reaction to it.
Yes. And, you know, Jack says to her, "Well, so basically you're looking for your new family now." And then she looks at Jack and starts laughing and goes, "You know, you are just like your father. You're annoying, but you have this way of making people feel noticed." And, you know, Jack acknowledges, yeah, I think I do have that. So, and by the way, while this is all going on as well, Beverly finds out that Jack has, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Maybe you can say it better than I can, but aeronautic syndrome. Aromatic syndrome.
Yep.
That's what Picard had, and that's what killed him. And in season 1,
and it actually first showed up at the end of Next Generation. It was causing him to go through time in All Good Things.
Yes. So, well, it wasn't causing him to go through time.
Well, that was Q, but
that was Q. But what happened is that, for those of you, speaking of Laser, who hasn't seen season 1, what happened is Picard actually died of this, and he became essentially an android, but a human android in the sense of he could do everything a human could do. He was just cybernetic.
Yeah, no, I did pick up that had happened. There are things that I'd heard or I picked up on.
Right.
Season 3 does a fantastic job, assuming you don't know anything, let me tell you.
Well, right, but I think that's why I say to you, like, you need to at least see season 1 so you can kind of get an idea of what happened.
I don't really care, to be honest with you. Because
but you're going to watch it. I'm going to make you watch it.
You're the only reason I'll end up watching because you're going to insist. But, like, honestly, I don't feel the need, and I don't think anybody
just like you need to watch Prodigy, and we're going to talk about
that one I'll do willingly.
So,
but no, seriously, they made this season as if it was its own show, and as someone who grew up with Next Generation, I appreciate that I didn't have to go watch 2 seasons of Drek to get to the amazing.
That is true. So like I was saying, so Jack Crusher has this disease.
Yep.
But here's something that's weird about this. So back when the ship had come to take Picard and Beverly and Jack and Will away, these changelings beamed onto the Titan, and they found Jack Crusher. And all of a sudden, Jack Crusher kind of turned into a different person, so to speak, and just beat the ever-loving shit out of these changelings and killed all 4 of them. That's kind of when they went, okay, we need to do some scans on you because that's some weird shit going on.
Yeah.
And he's like, and they found this. This will become a little bit more prevalent when we get closer to the end here. But so this was going on as well. And we get to where where 709 shows Jack I can't remember what they called the Klingon bird of prey, but it was the one from Voyage Home, from Star Trek Voyage Home. I think that's Star Trek 4, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that is
the
Star
Voyage
Trek 4.
Home. Basically, they said that they fished it out of the bay, but they had trouble getting it out of San Francisco Bay because it had decloaked. And Jack went, okay. So remember I was talking about Geordi's other daughter that was already on the Titan. So his daughter and Jack decide to go over to the bird of prey, steal the cloaking device, bring it back to the Titan.
One has to wonder how it took them this long to come up with this idea, because they could have done this like in DS9, they could have done it in Voyage, they could have done it in Next Generation at any time. There's storylines dealing with Federation developing their own cloaking device. Why not just use this?
So, and by the way, I'm surprised when they were walking through Daystrom Institute, and we'll get to that in a minute, why the Federation cloaking device that was in Next Generation wasn't in Daystrom Institute, because you know damn well that's where it would have been.
It probably is. We just didn't see it. It's not like they saw the entire Institute. And
here's the thing, like, I would have loved if they took that and used that one instead, because that was an awesome cloaking device. But anyways.
It was. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So, what happens is they try to cloak the ship, and they're not hooking it up right. And basically, Geordi, who's about to leave because he doesn't want to be involved in what's going on with Picard, is like, oh, I'm going to kill my daughter. And Picard's like, I'm going to kill my son. He's like, all right, I'm just going to help you here. So the Forge basically is finally convinced, all right, I'm going to help you guys. We're going to connect this cloaking device correctly, because you guys can't do that apparently. And they decide, okay, we're going to go back to Daystrom Institute and get Will and Rafi and Worf out of there, because, we left them there and we got to get them. So what happens is while this is all going on at the Fleet Museum, Rafi, Will, and Worf are going through the Daystrom Institute. They see some interesting devices, which we won't talk about, because I would rather you see that.
There are so many Easter eggs.
Oh my God, there's so many things in there that I really want.
It's beautiful.
I really want to
have
them
personal favorite,
explore.
just to whet your appetites, is the body of James T. Kirk.
No, you know what's even more interesting to me? Genesis 2.
Yeah, that also was wow.
I went. Oh, ooh, okay.
I was just trying to, but we both did. Yeah, and there's more than those.
So, all of a sudden they start hearing this music.
Oh God!
And Professor Moriarty
got me with this one.
This Raven starts showing up, and then all of a sudden a holographic Raven shows up, Crow, whatever you want to call it. And then, speaking of holograms, Professor Moriarty shows up.
They got me on that one. I'm like, oh, it's God, it's you.
Yeah, and so he starts shooting at them, and he's just like, he all of a sudden says, I can't get this music out of my head. And Will, and by the way, this is a great scene, mind you, Will Riker figures out that it's the song that Data was whistling in the first I think it was episode, I want to say it was the episode 2, because episode 1 Riker really wasn't in of what was it? Star Trek The Next Generation. He goes onto the holodeck to find Data, and Data is whistling this tune, and he whistles it, and Moriarty's like, marvelous, and disappears, and the security system goes away for Daystrom, and Will's like, oh, I know what's going on here. And they go into the main room and they find Data. But this isn't Data. This is, let's just say it's Data 2.0. Because what was his it was, and this was from season 1 again. This is why I'm forcing Laser to watch this.
I mean, I already know the bullet points of what
Dr. Soong. This is not Dr. Soong, the one that created Data, but a different Dr. Soong, who actually gave Picard the body, but that was intended for Data, had created another. I might as well just say golem in this sense. And what he did was he put Data, Lore, B5, and himself into this android. B5 and himself were just memory files, but Lore and Data were basically going at it inside of this Data 2.0, so to speak. And why this is all important is Data, or whatever you want to call him, is actually the manifest for the Daystrom Institute. So when the Titan shows back up, they say, "Look, we got to take Data with us because we need this because he's the manifest anyways." So everybody's able to beam on board except Will Riker, who is fighting all these security people that have beamed onto Daystrom Institute to stop them, and one of them shoots a transporter inhibitor at him, so he's not able to transport away. The Titan's able to get Worf, Data, and Rafi off the Institute and warps away. Come to find out, Vadic is one of those people that's there. She was just a security officer and kills. I want to say she killed 2 other changelings, but I think it might have been Federation.
I think it was just Federation agents, yeah.
And takes him onto the Shrike. Basically, she basically brings him onto the Shrike and says, "Listen, you need to tell me how to find these guys." And he's like, "No, I'm not doing that." And then we come to find out, oh, look, there's Troy, who she has kidnapped. And the next episode we basically go to, which I believe is episode 8. 7 or 8. 7 or 8 are basically intertwined with each other. This is another good touch. The Titan goes to, I don't think it's the Chintaka system, but it's the Chintaka shipyard, not shipyard, but graveyard basically, where all the old ships that were destroyed are there, I guess. And they power down and hide there, and they basically have some epic music.
That's my text alert ringtone. Sorry.
Ooh, now we have a blooper.
Indeed.
Anyways, so the Titan is basically hiding in this graveyard, and they come to the conclusion, okay, well, we got to have the Shrike come to us. We got to have Vadic come to us. And because if we don't, we're not going to figure out what the hell is going on here. So they make up this thing of this Vulcan ship found them and disabled them. You know, it's something minor, and I don't even know why they did that, but whatever. Because we all know that Vulcan ships at this point suck, and they don't do anything good anyways.
Alas, Vulcan technology. It ain't what
Vulcan
it used to
technology, exactly. So, the Shrike comes, they come on board, and basically they're able to trap Vadic. And
I just want to say, I love that ship's name, the Shrike. That is such a cool name.
Yes. And Vadic basically tells them her story of, hey, I was one of several changelings that somehow got captured, which I would like to know how they captured changelings during the war.
Very good question, in my opinion.
So, and basically what they did is they did experiments on them. And the results of these experiments, which was something that I didn't say, was they're able to not only look even more like humans, on top of that, they're able to have all of their organs and blood. So you're basically looking at a human being that's a changeling. So that's some wild shit.
Yeah.
But if you kill them and you start dissecting them, they turn back into goo, as Laser basically implied earlier.
Yes, the monologuing
so Vatic basically
protoplasm.
says that they escaped, and she took the form of the person that was experimenting on her.
That is so screwed up. I love that as a twist. She just hates it so much. She's just like, I'm using this to portray myself. And just like, wow.
By the way, during these episodes, Vatic a couple times cuts off her hand and communicates with some other thing out there.
Mysterious entity. I love some of your theories, actually.
And basically the entity says, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to kill you. And somehow is able to affect Vatic, by the way, too, which is another thing that takes points off for me when I give you what my point of view is on this. But my God, like, I'm going to get ahead of myself if I reveal who it is.
I have
right
answers
now, so
on what I think that is, but I understand where you're coming from.
Right. So, basically what happens is Vatic is able to actually take control of the ship and escape Picard and Beverly. But one of the good things is Beverly is able to track the changelings now, which is great. And Vatic is able to take control of the ship, and she says to Jack over the loudspeaker, "Hey, if you come up to the bridge, I'll finally tell you what this is all about." And there's a scene in these two episodes where she basically indicates to Seven of Nine, like, this is very ironic what's about to happen. And you're kind of looking at her like, what do you mean by that? But
there was a lot of foreshadowing in there. Yeah. Complain if you will about the end reveal, which I know you're going to.
Yeah. So
what
happens
set it up really well.
So they capture Captain Shaw again, and they hurt him again, and I'm like, God, this guy's a poor fucking
poor
dude.
Shaw. I've never gone from hating a guy so much to loving a guy so much.
Yeah, and then basically Vatic kills one of the crew, and then when Jack comes up on the bridge, she just shoves them all into the conference room except for Seven of Nine and him. And while this is all going on, they're trying to get Data to take control of the body, because Lore keeps coming back out
and everything up.
And Lore actually helps them helps the changelings take control of the ship.
Because of course he does.
This beautiful scene of Data basically just giving up, and Lore takes control. But in reality, by giving up, Data was able to take control of his body and remove Lore from him. But, obviously he's a part of him now. And Data comes back to life and is able to take control of the Titan again. He opens up the bridge, which is awesome. I'm like, shit.
That's where we get on my monologue protoplasm scene. Is Data just being like, get the hell off my shit. I loved it. It.
And they're able to suck out Vatic and the one changeling that was with her, and then they're able to get the other changelings off the ship somehow, or kill all the other changelings, and they destroy the Shrike, and we lead into the last two episodes. And I'm sorry if you guys are listening to this and going, Paul, this is really fucking boring, but I kind of have to give a synopsis and a perfect synopsis of it. Again, there's some things I'm leaving out, but you can watch Picard season 3 and you'll get everything else. So we come to episode 9 and 10. Episode 9, they decide, well, during all this, basically, Frontier Day is about to begin. They were able, Will and Troy were able to come back from the Shrike before they destroyed it, because Worf went over there and saved them. Probably killed the whole crew too while they were at it, but whatever. Also, and I'm leaving out this integral part, they come to find out that the other piece that was stolen from Daystrom was Picard's remains. His body is in cryostasis right now.
Oh,
and it was
snap! I wonder.
And they find out that they took pieces of him. Come to find out, Troy goes into Jack's mind.
Oh, this was great.
There's this red door that keeps showing up into his head. And she's like, okay, well, I'm going to go through the red door and we're going to find out what it is. She opens the door and she's scared as fuck. Leaves Jack's mind and goes, I gotta go. Jack's like, what the hell is going on here? Come to find out, and this was the part that made me go, oh God, really? The Borg are back.
Yeah, I think this bothers me significantly less than you because I have not watched the other 2 seasons.
So I will say this: in season 1, the Borg really wasn't used. It was more of the Romulans were trying, and again, spoiler alert, red alert, spoiler alert. This was again where the Romulans were taking parts off the Borg ship, because this was after Romulus had been destroyed and they were trying to rebuild themselves.
I did notice and actually like that they're using events from the reboot universe, but from the original universe.
Right. So season 1 really didn't have the Borg in it as a bad guy. It was more of them using the Borg ship and other stuff that came with it. It was more of like this thing that was there and it was used and then it was used again for something. That was really all it was, Laser. So
yeah, fair enough.
So basically what happens is Deanna tells Picard and Beverly this, and then she's like, listen, we can't let him go anywhere. He has to be locked down. We have to whatever. By the way, Jack is able to take control of people. Not the older people, but the younger people. And we're about to get to why that happens in a few minutes here. But basically, Jack says to Picard, no, you're not going to keep me here. Takes control of the 2 security officers, goes to a shuttle, and leaves. He's able to figure out where the Borg are. Come to find out that's Jupiter later, but we'll get to that in just a second. So what happens is Picard is like, look, we got to go to Earth where Frontier Day is happening and tell everybody and warn them that the Borg are back. That's what they do. Meanwhile, the ship is getting taken over because, this brilliant idea of interconnecting the ships and doing fleet maneuvers is the greatest idea of ever until it backfires.
Because no one could have seen that one coming.
Except
for Geordi LaForge, he totally saw that one coming.
Which he was complaining about that, but they ignored him. What happens is, which is interesting, is, like I said, Jack finds the Borg. He beams onto the Borg cube and finds the Borg queen, and he tries to kill her. By the way, the Borg queen is so disfigured, and
I love that. She got destroyed from Voyager. I love that so much. That is such a great attention to detail.
And she is like, this is not the Borg queen you're accustomed to. But because of what's going on with Jack, and this is what's really going on, and what really killed Picard. Basically, the Borg technology that Picard had in him still, whether it be the nanoprobes or whatever it was causing the syndrome, or maybe it wasn't the syndrome at all, and it killed him. So what happened?
It's implied that aromatic syndrome, which is apparently a completely real thing, that was a misdiagnosis because the Borg screwed with his DNA. That was what was being implied there. So it was not aromatic syndrome at all, but it appeared like it.
So as a result of screwing with his DNA, it screwed with Jack's DNA, and he had this genetic code that he was he was actually turned into a Locutus in a sense, but instead of him being Locutus, he was this like transmitter.
Vox. Instead of being the speaker, he is the voice, as they said. So
correct.
They call him Vox.
And he tries to kill the Borg Queen, but because he has this Borg DNA in him, she's able to control him, and she assimilates him, which all of a sudden starts up this huge transmitter in this cube, and they start broadcasting to these Federation ships, which causes the young crew members of every ship to turn into Borg.
And I love that this was foreshadowed.
And the reason that this happened was because the transporters were fucked up by the changelings, who put Picard's DNA into the transporters, which resulted in the young members of the crew being assimilated because of the transmitter.
Jack's been having visions the whole season of these red vines,
right.
which we later learn is the Borg. And he sees at one point the transporter showing people with those vines all over them when they transport in. They set this up, man. I love it.
And what I was trying to say was this was why Jack was able to command, or I shouldn't say command, take over people, because they had the Borg DNA in them.
Yep, it was already there.
And it was also explained that the reason they couldn't take over the older crew members was because the older crew members, their frontal lobes after 25, you can't do anything with them, and that's why they were able to take control of the younger ones, because they haven't come to that development yet.
Right. It's also a beautiful which Trek does this. It's a beautiful analogy for indoctrination.
So basically what happens,
the kids with the Borg.
So basically what happens is the fleet's taken over by the Borg, and they destroy the orbital platforms, which we don't see, but they said that they destroyed them, and they start destroying the space dock that they have now, which apparently controls this huge shield that shields Earth, which is like, okay, this is awesome. Also, just before they arrive at Frontier Day, a new Enterprise is revealed. The Enterprise F.
That
beautiful
is
ship.
The Star Trek Online Enterprise F.
Yes.
And it's
not
a
beautiful
ship. It's actually an old ship that that's been around as the way it's been, but we haven't seen it in anything Trek before.
So, I mean, I haven't played online, Star Trek
Neither
Online.
Have I, but that's where that's from.
But if that was a ship that was just christened the Enterprise, okay, fine. That's fine. Basically, so, and it's, oh God, what is her name? Shelby.
Shelby from Best of Both Worlds, which is great.
Yes.
And
so
I love how they made the comment, man, the fact that she is behind this thing that's so Borg-like.
Yeah. So Shelby shows up, and she's an admiral now, and she's commanding the Enterprise F. And, Picard tries to warn her, and then she ends up dying because the young crew members kill her. So you got all this going on. And then, these young crew members are trying to take over the Titan. So the old, the Next Generation crew gets down to the maintenance deck so they can get off the ship and try to find something else. The Forge is like, I have an idea. Let's get to the shuttle and I'll take you there. But in this firefight, Seven and Rafi stay behind with Captain Shaw to get these guys on the ship so they can go and do what they need to do. And in the process, Captain Shaw is killed. And just before he dies, he tells Seven of Nine, "This is your ship now."
Beautiful.
So LaForge, they get in, the Next Generation crew gets into this shuttle. They go to warp, and they come to the Fleet Museum. And Picard's like, "Why are we back here?" And Will's like, "Oh, so we're going to use one of these old ships." And LaForge is like, "Well, not quite. I was trying to save this for a special occasion, but I guess this is the best time to use it." They go into Hangar Bay 12, which his daughter had kind of indicated that there was something in Hangar Bay 12 earlier in this season. And they open up the doors, and there is the Enterprise D.
Beautiful.
The Enterprise
Absolutely
D is
beautiful.
pretty much back to what it was with, like I think Jordy said that there was something with one of the nacelles that was still not fixed.
He had been restored. Well, no, it's not that it hadn't been fixed. He explained how he had replaced the nacelles with nacelles from other ships.
So basically what had happened was they took the saucer section that had crashed on the planet in Next Generations, the movie.
Star Trek Generations.
Star Trek Generations, not Next Generation. Wow, I'm getting tired.
I could tell.
And they because of the Prime Directive, they had to take that away. So Geordi brought it back to the museum, and I guess I'm guessing something happened to the USS Syracuse, which was another Galaxy class ship. The battle section of it was given to make the Enterprise whole, and Geordi was pretty much almost 100% able to bring the Enterprise D back to life. But it basically was, I would say it was probably at 95% complete at that point. They go onto the bridge, and the bridge looks exactly the same as what it was in the series. By the way, while they're on their way into the Enterprise D, he gives the line, "Oh, we obviously can't use the Enterprise E," and they all look at Worf, and Worf's like,
"It's not my fault.
It's not my fault."
It's like, what's not your fault, Worf?
Right. So what's not your fault? So that indicates that in the novels, Worf was the captain of the Enterprise E at one point. Somehow he did something to the Enterprise E. I don't think it was destroyed, because I don't think they would have said, "And we obviously can't use the Enterprise D or Enterprise E if it was," because, it could be in one of those other hangar bays and it's just getting repaired. I think that's probably what's going on, honestly, but what do I know?
My assumption is that it got lost, like pulled into a nebula or some shit.
It could be. It could be
not
that,
destroyed, but inaccessible would be my guess.
I think something happened to it where it's still under repair, and they basically decide, well, you know what, we're just going to go with another Enterprise at this point. So then they get in the Enterprise, and they power it back up. The computer says, it's the Enterprise is under the control of Captain Picard. And he's like, "I'll take the field to motion."
I love hearing Mitchell Barrett as the computer again. Oh, that was so nice.
So, and they load torpedoes into the ship. They go to warp, and they go to Sector 001, where this is all going on, and they find the Borg, like I indicated a little bit earlier, in Jupiter, hidden in one of the gas giants in Jupiter, I guess is the best way to put it. And episode 10 was one of those frustrating things for me, because there were some things in there that, as I'll tell you in a few minutes, that annoyed me. But basically the Enterprise, they come to the Borg ship, and it looks like the Borg ship actually comes out of Jupiter.
It's hanging out in the spot.
No, it was hanging out in a spot, but then it looks like as the episode goes on, it comes farther out.
I guess it could be. I didn't see it that way, but I'm not going to say it didn't.
So basically what happens is Picard, Will, and Worf beam over to the Borg cube, and they're basically going over there to save Jack and to figure out how to disable this oversized Borg cube, because I think it's actually way bigger than what a normal Borg cube would be. Plus, on top of that, the transmitter's literally inside of it.
Yeah.
What they find is they find these Borg that are decaying. And basically what's going on is these Borg are being cannibalized by the Queen because she's using them to sustain her life. So while this is all going on, Seven of Nine, Rafi, and the older members of the crew are able to take control of the Titan again and basically try to stop the fleet as best as they can from, destroying Space Dock, because if they destroy Space Dock or disable it, they're out of luck. Earth is out of luck because the shield will go down.
Yeah.
So they decloak, cloak, try to disable them as much as they can, and eventually they get disabled, and Space Dock eventually falls. It kind of like starts to fall out of orbit, but I just assume that it just like the other ship earlier, it just isn't stabilized because, it got disabled by all these ships. So back to the Borg ship, Picard says to Worf and Riker, well, we got to part ways. I'm going to go save my son. You need to figure out how we can destroy this ship. And basically, they part ways. Worf is like, I'm a Klingon. I don't talk about goodbye.
You don't say defeat or farewell.
Exactly. So they go off. Will and Worf eventually basically fight two Borg who are protecting the central nexus, and they stop them and are able to upload the information to the Enterprise D. And Picard goes down into the chamber where Jack is now a Borg and is basically commanding the fleet. And, Picard's trying to break Jack out of it, and then the Queen chimes in with her evil laugh and
classic Borg Queen.
Doesn't, in my opinion, explain good enough how her and the Changelings hooked up, and
it definitely is left to
it's left to
your imagination. I like that, but because I think it's more interesting. But I get why you'd want more. I don't think it's pretty obvious. It's enemy of my enemy sort of a thing.
Well, right, but I'll get into it in my review. But basically, she tells Picard, her and the Changelings had, the same thing in mind. They hate the Federation, so this is why they joined forces. She also talks about how, she doesn't really say it, but basically she had to, slowly but surely, the voices of the Borg stopped talking to her, and she had to assimilate herself all of the Borg to somehow get to Earth and, connect with Jack and seek out this revenge against the Federation. And she said that the Borg were evolving. Weren't going to assimilate people, but we're going to evolve into this.
We're not going to assimilate you anymore. We're just going to exterminate you. Turn into Daleks.
Yeah, basically. So, Picard's like, okay, well, I'm not going to let you do this. And I'm not going to let you take my son. So what he does is he takes one of the tubes and plugs himself into the Borg collective, what's left of it, and convinces Jack, well, in a beautiful scene, I would say.
Oh, very heartful. Oh, warming. I love that.
Convinces Jack, you're the reason, you're giving me a reason to finally settle down, because I went to the vineyard to basically wait to die because I had nothing to live for. You're something for me to live for. you're the reason why I'm living now. And, that broke Jack out of, I don't want to say trance. I want to say like the collective.
It broke
he was
their
able
hold on him for sure.
Right. And he was able to disconnect himself from the collective. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, the Enterprise D, Data's like, oh, I have this gut feeling I can get us into the Borg ship.
Why am I sensing enjoyment?
Yes. And there's this wonderful scene of the Enterprise D just flying inside this Borg cube, doing some things that we've never seen the Enterprise D do. Mind you, I know some people have bitched about it online, but I'm sitting here going, guys, the Enterprise D would have been able to do this. They just didn't see that because guess what? There was 1,000 people on board. So they're not going to go play Joyride if there's 1,000 people on board.
Well, also the scale of what they were dealing with would have allowed.
Also,
us to do
before
that.
this scene, we do see the Enterprise D taking out some turrets from the and they actually use the word turrets, mind you, from the Borg ship on the outside, and Beverly Crusher's the one destroying them, and they're looking at her like, when did you learn how to do this? And she's like, I've been through a lot these last 20 years.
Yeah.
So they go into the Borg cube and they find the transmitter, but they figure out that if they destroy the transmitter, then it's going to kill everybody inside and
because
whatever.
Of course.
So Geordi's like, we have to do this. So they destroy the transmitter. They start to leave the cube. And as the cube is blowing up, Will Riker basically says to Troy, and she can hear him telepathically, hey,
This is goodbye, Anzadi.
Goodbye. We'll see, me and your son will see you when you cross over. And she's like, no, this isn't going to happen. Oh, by the way, I think I know where they are.
Yeah,
they do
she's
this.
able to sense him. Like, he wasn't reaching out to her. It wasn't the Force. It's just he was saying goodbye to her, and she could hear him because, there's that bond between them.
And then they do this thing where they Tokyo drift into this spot of where, and it's a beautiful thing of seeing the underside of the Enterprise D. They find him, they sit there for a minute, and then they start to move off, and they beam up Will, Worf, Picard, and Jack. Thankfully, they didn't kill off Picard because I was going to get pissed if they did that.
We both thought they were going to.
I had a feeling they were going to,
but they didn't, and I am glad they didn't.
And they leave the cube, and the cube blows up, and then all the younger members that were Borg changed back to being normal, and it was in the nick of time because the ships were about to destroy every major city on Earth. So that pretty much ends the Borg and stops them from ever coming back. Thank God. Oh, by the way, the Borg Queen is done by, and I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but the original Borg Queen from the movie in
yeah, she does the voice
First
work.
Contact.
It's not her physical body, but it is her voice work.
And that was great. And there's this beautiful scene of the Enterprise D next to the Titan, which I thought was cool. And they basically just go into what's happening now with everybody.
With like a Return of the King levels of, hey, here's another ending. Hey, here's another ending. Hey, here's another ending.
So 7 of 9 becomes a captain because Shaw basically sent a review to Starfleet and said that when they came back, she should be promoted to captain because she was a really good officer, which made her cry because she was going to stop being in Starfleet. And it's great because the scene it happens with Tuvok, Captain Tuvok now.
Man. So
and
good to see
the
him.
last words that he said to her was, resignation denied, Captain, which was great. And basically what happens is they go through a year later. Basically, they go through. Crusher becomes an admiral. She for Starfleet Medical. She comes up with a way to get rid of the Borg stuff out of all these young people's systems, and to detect all the changelings. And I think all the changelings basically got out of not being like killed or whatever because they told them where they can find the actual officers that they didn't kill, because they were using them for information. And then we fast forward to a year later. The Enterprise D is put on the Fleet Museum. It's now on display, and it's interesting because I was thinking about this, Laser, and I'm like, I wonder if they kept the Enterprise D around for a year just to kind of, because they were still, because you got to keep in mind, some of these ships are probably in disarray.
Well, disarray, also,
Yeah.
maybe the whole linked up thing was not a great idea, so maybe we should have some ships that aren't.
So I'm assuming that they probably kept the Enterprise D around just to kind of whatever, or that's what I was thinking.
I think that makes plenty of sense to me.
So they shut down the Enterprise, they leave, and then they go to Data basically being counseled by Troy, and that's funny. I'm not going to go into that, but that's hilarious.
Oh, it was beautiful.
And then there's two other things that happen that are very important, and then I'll be done giving you a synopsis of this, and you'll probably be like, thank God, Paul, stop. Basically what happens is Jack is made an ensign. And he's like, oh, nepotism. I became an ensign already, and I'm already on my own ship because of you two. And Picard's like, no, it's not nepotism. You did this on your own.
Names mean almost nothing.
So I think they thought that Picard thought he was going with Crusher and their son because, he thought that they were going to the Titan because this was his first mission. Come to find out, it's their shakedown. And Beverly smiles and says, "Oh no, this isn't the Titan anymore." They're like, "We know you like pop and circumstance and blah, all this other stuff." And they come up, and now the Titan has been rechristened as the Enterprise G.
Yep.
Which is another problem. Which is another problem I have, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I think your problem, if I'm reading you right, I think the problem there is you didn't understand that the F is supposed to have been around.
Right. So, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. So, so they go on the ship. They do this other scene where they play poker, so it ends just like All Good Things does. The whole crew does, and that was great.
Oh, I love that.
And then there's a scene where Jack goes on the bridge and he's like, "Oh, we need to go here," and 7 of 9's like, Captain 7 of 9's like, "No, you're not doing that. Don't listen to him." And
I never do.
LaForge's daughter's like, "Yeah, I never do." And Rafi is her number one, and this is, like I said, it's a shakedown cruise for the new Enterprise, and basically she's like, Rafi says to her, "So what's your first words going to be?" And then they just leave it at that before 7 of 9 says anything.
She starts to say something and they cut immediately. I'm like, "Oh, you
right," which is hilarious. I love it.
You teases.
And then we have a post-credits scene. And I called this shit, Laser. Did I not call this shit?
You did. And I
did call this shit. So Jack is in his quarters, taking everything out of his bag. All of a sudden, he pulls the phaser out of his bag, and all of a sudden you hear somebody start talking. He pulls a phaser out of his bag, points it at him, and there's fucking Q.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, I knew that motherfucker wasn't gone.
I knew that they said that. I'd heard that they had quote unquote killed him. It's Q. You don't kill Q.
No.
You don't kill.
So basically, Q said, Jack's like, "Wait a minute. Aren't you dead?"
Don't
and he's
think
like,
so linearly.
Yeah, he's like, "Don't think so linearly." And then he's like, "So what are you trying to do? Like, what are you trying to do to my father this time?" He's like, "Oh no, I'm not here for your father. I'm here for you. This is your journey, and I'm here, to basically pester you now." And I'm just like, oh my god.
Oh yeah.
By the way, his uniform. His uniform is whatever he has on is awesome, by the way. So, and that's it for Picard season 3. So, first of all, sorry about the whole synopsis, but I wanted to go through that before we did this.
Yeah, you could have watched like 3 episodes in that time frame.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm sure I missed something. I'm sure I didn't tell you everything, but
You have a
it was
good,
a
good
great-
synopsis. I would argue maybe we gave it a little too much information, but it's fine. I think you.
I mean, we've done this on the podcast before.
We
and
have.
It's been terrible, so you just get the terrible again. So there you go.
Dun, dun, dun.
So the real reason we wanted to do this on the podcast was to kind of review it. I'm going to obviously let Laser goes first because I like to be last anyways.
Oh.
But you know, I got to say at least the first 9 episodes were good. And episode 10 was good too. It's just some of the things in episode 10, which I'll talk about in a minute, just were absolutely like you could have taken 5 minutes to do this. And then obviously there's some other things, but I'll get into that in just a minute. But Laser, I give you the floor. You've talked, you've interjected
I've
a couple
interjected
times.
where I can, but yeah, I've been letting you run that.
So the floor is yours. Tell us what you think, what your score is. Go,
Well,
please.
I'm an old Trek nerd. I grew up in Next Generation. I was in grade school, so it's really nice to see the cast come together again. Nemesis left us with a crappy finale for Next Gen. I always hope they get the undiscovered country treatment, and I feel like that's exactly what we just got. We got the perfect send-off. Everyone's together again. We've brought Data back for real this time. We've also closed the plot thread from Generations, where Picard's like, "I've got no family. My uncle, my brother, and my nephew are dead. I've got no legacy." No, he does have a legacy, and he's an awesome character. And I want to take a moment. I could go gush for hours about how they nailed the Next Generation characters, which should be basic, but in this day and age, revival shows tend to miss this, and they didn't. So all the props for them actually nailing it. But I want to take a moment to say, all these new characters were amazing. I really enjoyed Rafi. She was an interesting undercover agent lady, and I know she's from previous seasons, which I don't know anything about, but I didn't have to.
Because you haven't seen season 1, I do have to indicate this to you. Rafi is actually Picard's number 1 after Riker.
Interesting.
Yeah. But but see, this is why you have to watch season 1, and you're going to.
No, I don't want to actually.
I'm gonna poke you until you do it.
You're gonna be poking me an awful long time. But here's the thing:
Yes.
I didn't need to know that, and all I needed to know was what it gave me, and I loved her anyway. She was amazing. I loved both of LaForge's kids. They're amazing, capable. I love that there is some family drama in there. I loved all of these characters. Captain Shaw! Give that man a gold star for best new Trek character in decades of Trek. Oh my God, Captain Shaw. Give me Captain Shaw spinoff. I know he's dead. I don't care. That man is awesome. What a boss. Oh my God. His death brought me to tears. And if you told me that when I first met him, I would have laughed at you. But they spent the time necessary to build this character from, this guy's a piece of shit, to, oh my God, no, he's not a piece of shit. This dude's a freaking awesome guy who's doing everything he can. And there's little hints early on that he does care about 709 quite a bit. He's hard on her. And he's toxic towards her, using her the name she doesn't want to go by, because he's got his own trauma from, 359. Understandable. Shitty that he's doing that, but it's understandable. And you see this confidence he has in her to do her job the whole time. He's just kind of being a hard ass. God, that's a great character. We had a great setup. With the whole thing with the changelings and the Borg, one of the things that caught me early on, and before I knew it was ever the Borg, whoever was working with the Changelings, it was an alliance, but not really, because the Changelings didn't do what they wanted. They were threatening them. And we had to sever the Changelings' hand to get the face to show up. That means all of those Changelings have Borg nanoprobes in them, which is why they were able to be threatened. That means, and this is all implicit, but it fits with what's going on. This was less, hey, we both hate the Federation more. Yeah, we don't like the Federation either. Yeah, and neither do I. Now you're going to do what I tell you to. I like that, because that's the Borg being the classic Borg, making people do their shit for them. Beautiful. Oh God, the whole plot of it's the Changelings, by the way. Oh my God, you didn't know who you could trust? There was an earlier showing of Tuvok, and they even trolled us with a Voyager theme. It's like, we got an ally! We got it! Oh, shit, he's a Changeling. God damn it. They had me, you might remember this, they had me thinking Troy was a Changeling for a little bit, and I was all like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Of course, she wasn't, and I'm glad for that, but that's the great writing of the season. From start to finish, strong showing. Beautiful storylines, great character developments, excellent use of legacy content, fan service where it was necessary, and I've seen the complaint that the show is 150% fan service, and yes it is. But that's not always a bad thing. And Trek has kind of not done any major fan service in a long time. I'm okay with this, as long as it's good. And that's the key. You could do fan service and make it work, and that's what they did. Now, not everything's going to, and Strange New Worlds is much less fan servicey and also amazing. And so it's not like you have to do that to make it work, but if you do it and you make it work, people are going to love it, and I certainly did. Give me that Enterprise G spinoff show right now. Directly into my veins. Star Trek Legacy, let's get it.
Yeah.
And
so what do you give this? What do you give out of 10?
Out of 10, I'm going to give it a 9 because there are some downsides.
So what are your downsides? Because I want to know, because we really haven't talked about. I'm very
positive and I'm glowing and I'm beaming because it is that good, but there are some downsides. We mentioned Valeris. I know nothing of her. You want to convince
Laris.
me that...
Her name is Laris.
Laris. Why am I calling her Valeris? That's the character from Star Trek 6. I'm dumb. I don't know anything about her. She was here and then gone and then not really developed on.
You need to watch season 1.
That's okay. She is your best argument for season
Thank
1.
you.
She is your best argument for me watching season 1. I don't know if I'm actually going to do it, but that is the best argument.
How about this? I'll hold your hand and we'll watch it together.
Oh, okay, Dad. But honestly, yeah, that's probably my biggest downer is that there are also.
Well, I hope that doesn't take a whole point off for that.
No. That is everything else is going to be nitpicks. That is the biggest chunk, but there are other nitpicks. Also, my standard for a 10 is pretty high. I almost never give anything a 10. I was tempted to give this a 9.5, but there are some pacing issues here and there. There's definitely padding in certain episodes. They probably could have gotten away with 9, maybe 8 episodes, and been a more cohesive, quick run through. You wouldn't want to take out any major plot points. There's a lot of we're sitting here and we're not really going anywhere with the plot, and we're not really going anywhere with the characters, but we're talking. There's little moments that really annoyed me, like Picard and Dr. Crusher, Beverly, deciding, you know what? Yeah, if we need to genocide these people, we'll do it. And I'm like, that's not Picard and Crusher. You lost me. Now it was only a small moment. So
I didn't really explain that moment, but there was a moment where they had Vadic trapped, and they were like, okay, well, if she's gonna be that way, we're just gonna kill her. And just before they look like they're about to do it, the Lore takes
Lore
over the
does
ship.
this thing. Yep.
Yeah, and then she's able to escape. So, I mean, that part. I mean, they're human though.
I get that they're human, but these are characters
and that's their
that are,
kid. That's their kid.
I get it, but these are characters that are incredibly well defined and who tend
Right.
to stand on ethics.
But you also have to keep in mind,
understand,
Laser.
I'm not. This is not. I told you, I'm in nitpicks now.
Well, right. But you have to understand when it comes to that, though, if you're not a parent, you don't understand that scene. And being a parent, when you see that, you're like, I get it. I would murder everybody that fucking wants to kill my kid. I don't care.
Right.
But go on. Sorry.
I'm just talking about the way these characters have previously been portrayed. There's a little bit of a mismatch there. While I personally really enjoyed Riker and Picard chewing each other's heads off, I thought it was interesting. That also felt very out of character a little bit. They've never really ever done that. Now, you could easily say, there's been some, previous drama or something. But they didn't do that. Like, I love the scene. I thought it was great. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but there's no setup. It's like, we're buddy cops together. Yeah, buddy captains. To, you killed us all. And it just, there's no transition there. They do a little bit. They give a little bit with Riker's trauma from losing his son. So there's a little bit of setup. It's not horrible. At this point, none of these things are horrible. They're just death by 1,000 cuts at this point. A little thing here, a little thing here. But again, I'm only taking it down to I'm still giving it a 9. This is amazing. Also, I thought of another positive. Finally, closure on the Lore storyline. That has been I wanted Lore in one of the TNG movies. I was so mad that the last time we saw Lore was when he teamed up with the Borg and brainwashed Data at the end of season 6.
If you watched season 1, you would have seen he was around.
Shut up.
Kind of.
Regardless, it's closest off the storyline of Lore, so I don't even need that. So there.
We're still going to watch it together. Because you have no choice in the matter.
Oh, I have plenty of choices. I have plenty of things I can do. But the other thing I would say is... Oh, God. Now I'm going to sound like an obsessed fanboy, but they destroyed the Excelsior, and I'm mad about it.
Yeah, but, they didn't even really show what the Excelsior looks like now, because it's obviously...
Oh, yeah, but I mean, we're talking about a ship that goes from the original series era all the way into TNG, all the way into to DS9, Voyager, and, we're just going to blow it up. I'm like, no, the Excelsior is cool. And again, nitpicks here. None of these are big. Otherwise, after all of that, I got nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10. Now, here's the reason for that. So, in episode 10, which to me has issues, one of the biggest issue, which takes a point off for me automatically, I understand that they were, and I've read this online, I've read the interviews and all that Paramount wanted these episodes to be one hour. Now, I don't think you can say that when the first episode of Picard season 3 was, I think, an hour and a half almost. So it's like, okay, well, I guess you're not keeping it to an hour, but all right. But I wish they would have taken 5 extra minutes, a couple minutes up to 5 minutes extra, just to kind of explain how the changelings and the Borg connected in a better way, and also how the Borg Queen got from the Delta Quadrant all the way to the Alpha Quadrant in Jupiter's atmosphere, being that fucking Janeway destroyed her with that neurotoxin. It has, but if you're like basically being like a queen and you know, what's the word I'm trying to use? I can't think of the word that I'm trying to use, but basically use the other Borg to sustain yourself. Like, like I want to know, I want a little bit more backstory. You don't have to give me a whole novel about it. I'm just asking for a couple minutes.
Yeah,
like
I certainly could see that being
something
they could do.
And I don't know, like, and I don't understand, like, how did you find the changelings? The changelings didn't just stumble on you. You found them. You figured out how to contact them. You gave them, I'm assuming you gave them the ability to do the things that they're doing. So it's like,
well,
other
the things
than
that
obviously
they're doing, they could do it because they are experimented on.
Well, right, but I'm talking about like she probably the warship that they had, somehow they were able to get that. They were probably helped by her on that. And then, more importantly, like I was indicating earlier in this episode, was how does she control the changelings? Because you see when she's communicating with Vadic, she has some kind of control over her. So how does she do that?
That one seemed pretty obvious to me. They're using the Borg nano cells, but not fully.
They must be.
That's the only explanation that makes any sense.
Yeah. So that to me again is like, I want some more explanation.
I could see a little bit more explanation there being.
And also, and in that too, which bothers me a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I love the Enterprise D, and I loved seeing what the Enterprise D did in this episode. For a ship that's been, hasn't been used in over 20 years, you're sitting here going, okay, I get it still has weapons, but it shouldn't be doing this much damage to a Borg cube. I get that, the Borg cube, I get that the Borg are basically a shell of what they used to be, but you're assuming that this Borg cube is got like the last of everything on it. So
if the
Borg
what I mean? Cube could have survived a direct assault from anything, it would have had to been this sneaky about how they took over.
But think about it this way. If one of those ships that was in that fleet attacked that Borg cube, yeah, I could understand. Even I'll give you this. Even if they, instead of taking the Enterprise D, took over Voyager instead, had the armor, which hopefully they left on there.
I think you're underestimating how strong a Galaxy class starship is.
Oh no! I'm not saying that a Galaxy class starship isn't strong, but if you remember in TNG and even in First Contact, the Federation, while they have good ships, they're really no match for those kinds of ships. Were no match for a Borg cube. Now, the Enterprise E was, because the Enterprise E had technology that was directly put on it to stop a Borg attack.
Right. But remember, Geordi's been refurbishing this thing, so he probably put better stuff on it.
I don't think so, because if you're saying that you're putting better stuff on it, why are you putting better stuff on it when this is supposed to be displayed on the museum? I wouldn't do that.
Because I actually do have an answer for you.
Okay.
And this is because it's cheaper than trying to buy the old stuff, and it's been old. The old stuff's old enough. It's going to be, you have to find it.
Well, I have a counter to that, though.
Yeah?
I have a counter to that, though. Then if that's the case, why wouldn't you turn it into what we actually saw in the fleet, and we saw in season 2 as well, the Neo Galaxy class starships?
Well, I mean,
Oh.
Hey, if you want an answer, you got to give me more than 2 seconds to cut me off, mister, you jerk.
You love me, shut up.
Sometimes. I actually do have an answer to that, and that's simply, you're trying to restore it to the best of your ability, but there are certain things that you're going to be cheaper to get that way. That doesn't mean you're going to do everything that way. You're trying to be as close to the original as you can. That's the answer to that.
Right. I understand
that's
what you're saying.
That's what you do when you're refurbishing old warships too.
And I understand. I would assume that those torpedoes are probably the same torpedoes on the other ships that are brand new. So I'm not discounting that, but I'm also trying to say that this Borg cube should have been a lot more powerful than it was. And
just for dramatic purposes, I absolutely agree with
right. You. And again, that's another thing that you could have, in that 5 minutes, could have explained. And I would have been fine. You don't have to give me a novel. You don't have to sit there and go, we're going to spend another hour episode on explaining this. No. I just need like 5 minutes. That's it.
Right, and
it would honestly, have been, and this would have been
part of my nitpicks of Thousand Deaths. But I see what you're saying.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I would have given this a 9.5 out of 10. If they would have done that, I would have given it a 9.5. I'm being deadly serious with you right now. Deathly serious with you. I can't even speak right now. I'm so tired. But I'm telling you, I would have given this a 9.5 if they did that. Now, I'm going to nitpick too, which is the other half of this. Is the 0.5. And it's many things together. So let's talk about first Laris. So Laris is a big part of season 2 in a different way, because she's a different character in the storyline. But Picard comes back to her and is like, and she's not Laris, it's her ancestor or whatever. But the point I'm trying to get to, I'm sorry, is that he gets an appreciation for Laris and is like, you know what? I'm not going to be scared about having a relationship with you. I'm going to go for it. And that's implied at the end of Picard season 2. So you use her in episode 1, and just like you, it's the exact same thing. You don't use her after that. You don't use her in the end. Picard doesn't go to that planet and drink whatever with her. He doesn't even introduce her to his son.
You could legit even get away with a throwaway line during that bar scene. Well, I can't stay too late, or Laris is going to get mad at me or something.
Exactly.
Literally, dude, you could do that, and that would at least address it.
And what annoys me even more is Terry McGinnis on Twitter is like, oh,
you mean Terry Metalis?
It's Terry Metalis.
Terry McGinnis would be Batman Beyond, my friend.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, McGinnis is on there. Yeah, I am tired. Wow, I'm pronouncing things the wrong way. Oh my god.
It's been a night for you, I can tell.
Yes. So, like I was saying, but Terry said on Twitter, Terry Metalis said on Twitter, that they left it for interpretation. They also left it for interpretation that Beverly was going to be together with him, or it could have just been, it's just
up to the fans' own.
Right.
I actually do kind of like that. That's actually a fair choice.
I get that, but at the same time, I'm like, if that was what you wanted to do all along, then you shouldn't have applied at the end of season 2 that they were going to be together.
Well, to be fair to him, he wasn't in charge of seasons 1 and 2.
That's true. And I will also give him credit for this. I get that he was trying to do many things with a very small budget. So I don't hate it on that much for all
you're
these.
Being more negative, but I think it's probably fair to say, would you agree with the positives I said in my review?
Oh no, I would agree. But I'm not done with my negatives yet.
Oh yeah, no. I didn't say you were. This is for the benefit of the audience listening to us that doesn't know that you love the show as much as I did for the most part.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going on the record. I love episode 1 through 9. Episode 10 is just okay for me because it was missing things that it should have had in it. So my second thing, which is also a big thing to me, and why I'm lumping it in this half, Janeway was name dropped about 3 to 5
so
times.
many times.
So many times.
Admiral Janeway.
Oh my God. I literally looked at the screen and went, where the fuck is Admiral Janeway?
Yeah,
and
this one is definitely out of Metallic's hands, but yes, I will agree. Why didn't they show her at least?
So you
once?
can definitely tell that he wanted her there, but come to find out, it was the producers of season 3 that said, no, this is not Avengers. You can't have everybody you want. So I'm giving them a pass on this, but it's included in my half point off.
Nah, I'd include that in my many nitpicks that take my whole point off. I just didn't think of it, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
And here's something that I do appreciate too. By the way, they recorded this during COVID. I don't know if it was the tail end of COVID or it was right in the middle, but for them to end up doing that is pretty awesome to have this come out of that. I gotta give Terry all the praise in the world for that. And then my third nitpick. Why do you introduce a new Enterprise to just make the Titan the Enterprise? Now, before you say anything, I don't know anything about Star Trek Online.
Yep.
I understand that.
I know almost nothing as well, but I know enough.
So the Enterprise F, if they had said that the Enterprise F had been around for a while, this is the caveat. If Enterprise F had been around for a while, I would have been fine with it.
And
however,
that's definitely what they were intending.
Okay,
to
go
with,
ahead.
Because from the Star Trek Online fans are actually really pissed off because the F has been decommissioned, and that's their Enterprise.
Right.
But it's been around since 2010.
But here's the thing, and here's where this was an error on Terry's part, and it could be the writers. It couldn't just. It probably wasn't him. It was probably all the writers at this point. When they open up Space Dock, they say the maiden voyage of the Enterprise F.
I don't remember them saying that.
Oh yeah, they did. It was the christening or the maiden voyage, something like that, to where they said this was the first time that you saw the Enterprise F, basically.
Well, I mean, it's the first time we've seen it in any media for sure.
I'm gonna have to
relook at that episode myself.
I'm gonna have to relook at it, but I'm pretty sure that's what
I
did.
remember them saying. Otherwise,
yeah.
But assuming it is, that's pretty screwy. That hey, it's made a voyage. Bye, it's gone. What?
Yeah, exactly. So, and don't get me wrong. I am completely fine with you making the Titan the Enterprise G. You could have made that the Enterprise F for all I care. Like that, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. That would have made more sense than making it the Enterprise G. Just make it the Enterprise F because
they were trying to be nice to the Star Trek Online fans. That's literally the reason.
I mean, okay, but it's just like, all right. And by the way, I want to see the Enterprise F. I want to see that ship in action. I want to see what it can
Play
do.
Star Trek Online.
I've seen like people have models of it. I'm like, dude, what can this ship do? I want to know. Yeah. Like I want to know what this can do.
Legit, I'd love to see a Star Trek Online, Star Trek Enterprise F show. I'd love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and I mean, what is there to say that they don't explain that in Prodigy at some point, and they say, "Oh, the Enterprise F got destroyed somewhere, so we decided to make the Enterprise, the Titan, the Enterprise G."
Very well happen.
I don't know. Look at what happened with the Enterprise C. I mean,
we still don't know what happened to the E.
They need to. Apparently, there was a tweet from. I'm gonna mispronounce his last name, so I'm just gonna say Aaron, the guy that does Prodigy, that they're gonna explain some of these things in Prodigy, I guess.
Ooh,
so
well, that's nice.
That is nice. So I'm looking forward to that. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Also, now we can have Janeway because Janeway's in the series the whole time. So,
Yep.
By the way, I do want to do a review on here about that as well down the road. But yeah,
I desperately need to watch that. I haven't yet, but I want to.
So, but then there was something that came to me, and I wasn't even going to say this on the podcast, but I saw this today, and I was like, "Oh shit, that would have been a great idea." So, basically, what this fan had said was, "Okay, they kept the Titan. Jack is going on the ship, but what happens is they fly. They do like what happened in Star Trek the Voyage Home at the end there, where you see that Excelsior class ship, and they're like, oh, this is going to be the Enterprise A. They actually fly over it, and on the other side is the Enterprise A, another Constitution class ship.
So in this case, you'd want them to just be part of Enterprise F.
So no. I'm getting to this. So they fly over the Titan. They do the exact same lines, blah, 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 blah. They fly over the Titan, and behind it is a Neo Galaxy class ship that is now the Enterprise G.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting, isn't that? That's a nice thought.
That's a nice thought.
I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's actually not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. I personally like the idea of the Titan being G better, but that's cool.
And that would have been because if you remember the line, they used the line in honor of your crew.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, that would have made sense. Like, because the Enterprise D was such an integral part of, the TNG storyline that it would make sense to make like a Neo Galaxy class ship that. So that would have been really interesting. By the way, what is with all these Neo?
I don't know. The Neo Constitution, Neo Galaxy.
Yeah. So
are we gonna get a Neo Voyager?
Maybe that's why all these interconnected things coming, because there's too much Neo. Get it? Get it? Okay. Anyways, by the way, have you well, you didn't see season 2, but have you noticed like when they have a new ship of a previous ship, it almost looks exactly like the previous one. So like the Galaxy class ships, the Neo Galaxy look almost exactly like Galaxy.
Yeah.
The Neo Constitution is like smaller, but they look like the Constitution.
Yes, I have noticed.
And then like in season 2 there was the oh my God, I should have this on the top of my head, but I'm tired. Picard's original ship, the
Stargazer?
Stargazer. They had the Stargazer in season 2, and it looks exactly like the Stargazer.
I did see the Stargazer there on the ship museum, and I thought that was cool.
Yes. Well, I mean, they obviously saved it, so yeah, you would think it would be there at this point. Not saved it. They took it back from the Ferengi. But yeah, I mean, that's why my score is the way it is. In no way, fashion, or form should you take this as negative, because I really enjoyed season 3, and it's the best season of Picard yet. And I think all the praise and everything else that goes along with it should go to Terry and the crew for how they did this season. But there were issues, and
nothing's perfect, but
nothing's perfect. And I really hope that Prodigy really does kind of clear up some of these issues, and we get to see. And even if they do Star Trek Legacy, I really do hope that we get to see some of these things that we weren't able to see in these episodes, because I feel like if they included it, it definitely would have been a higher score for me. And
I will say this is the best Trek I've seen in 20 years.
I know you said that to me.
I know, but I gotta say it on the record.
Yeah. 20 years. And by the way, Laser, surprisingly, and I wouldn't think that you would like this series, but you actually liked Enterprise like I did.
Enterprise is my second favorite Trek show, right after TNG. Absolutely.
And I'll be honest with you, like I heard from people like, Enterprise
people hate
is not
Enterprise,
that good.
but I honestly feel like they hate it unwarranted.
honestly, like the first, like well, actually, I'm trying to think where there was like,
The first season and a half is a little bit of a shakedown, but
yeah,
that's always the case in literally every
and then it
Trek
gets
show.
really, really good.
Oh, yeah. Late
It
season
gets
2,
really
season 3.
good.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's that show is really good, and I'm glad that they kind of brought that a little bit into it too, like seeing the original Enterprise there, because that was pretty
There
awesome
was a
too.
lot of references to basically every version of Trek, and I love that they
Yeah.
did that. Not everything got big, but
Mhm.
there was a little bit of the original series, a little bit of Enterprise, a little bit of DS9, a little bit of Voyager. I mean,
No, a lot of it is Voyager.
a lot
Jesus
of it
Christ.
is Voyager. You're not wrong.
Oh my god.
But still, it was great. It's good. Anyone that grew up in the 80s and 90s watching Star Trek, this show was for you.
And I think this was the send off that Next Generation needed.
100%.
I don't think it was. It actually, to me, Jason had said something about this on Twitter about fan service, and I'm sitting there thinking,
yes, I was totally commenting on his post earlier.
I was like, well, I wouldn't say it was fan service, but I can see where you would think that it was fan service, because
It is,
episode 9,
but
half of episode 9 into 10, I would say would be fan service, but it wasn't all fan service.
It wasn't all fan service. It was, and what it does, the fan service, it does it well, will be my argument to that. And again, TNG never got the ending it deserved. We had Nemesis. If it had stopped with All Good Things, then yes, I'd say it would have. But it didn't. It kept going. And then we got the ending of Nemesis, which, oh God, no, that is not an ending. That is... Nemesis is a mess. It's not the worst TNG film. That goes to Insurrection, of course. But it's not a good endpoint. And I know that it was stated by Terry Metalis that this was supposed to be the send-off for the TNG crew, the way Undiscovered Country was for the original series. Mission accomplished.
Well, and Patrick Stewart kind of was like, well, I wanted to do more, but this is how they wanted us to send it off. I mean, the reception that it's gotten, I can't see why they wouldn't do at least a movie or something. But yeah, I mean, if they don't want to do anything more.
This whole thing felt like a expanded Trek movie. That's how it felt.
Oh, there is one other thing that I have to put in that nitpick.
Yeah.
And if somebody would have watched season 1, especially season 1, because you missed Data's daughters.
Ah, lol.
No, not lol. Data has 2 twin daughters.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, so now you need to see season 1. Because,
no, I don't.
Yes, you do.
I really don't, Paul.
So this was the other nitpick. I'm gonna make you watch it. I'm telling you that right now. If I have to chain you down and
you're gonna have to come down to Utah and bind.
Are you gonna have a banjo for me?
No. No, I'm not.
Wait. Are you gonna have a couple Mormons waiting for me?
Maybe that might happen. That potentially could happen.
Potentially.
Keeping in mind that almost everyone here is Mormon, so.
But and apparently this was actually a scene that was cut. I wanted Data to meet his daughter.
I wouldn't have been opposed to that.
No, because so in season 2, ironically, Wesley Crusher shows up.
That's who I wanted to see throughout this whole season that I didn't.
So yes, and that is another one where I'm kind of
that's one of my nitpicks right there.
Yeah,
especially since his brother was being attacked. Why wouldn't you do anything?
And yeah, that's the other thing too. Is like, not only that, but you're not a time traveler. You're a traveler.
He's a traveler. He's got to know this is going on. The only excuse that he's got is if he had intervened, it would have made it worse. That's the only excuse he's got. But so he's got. I want to see the brothers together. I do.
So, basically what happens is Wesley meets with Data's daughter and says, hey, look, we want to offer you to be a traveler with us. You can either stay doing what you're doing or you can become a traveler. And that's what ends up happening if she becomes a traveler. So I would have just liked to seen her kind of I would have liked to see her and Data meet because I think that would have been a really touching scene.
Well, they could still do that.
I'm hoping that they actually shot the scene and it's on the Blu-ray.
Ooh.
Because I will probably man
Blu-ray,
cry.
I'm buying it. Absolutely.
I'm probably gonna man cry if that happens, honestly. And then yeah, I forgot about this too. So the one thing that'll make Laser laugh. So they made a second. So as a result of season 2, because of Q fucking with the timeline, there is, how do I say this? There is a, what? How do I word this? A different version of the Borg out there still.
I've heard of this.
So, and they're called the Girardi because that's her name. But so it's not the fact that other Borg is out there. And I understand that they were keeping an eye on this transwarp aperture that showed up. That right there didn't really, I didn't really care about that. But what I cared about was like, well, wait a minute. Here's another character like Laris that you had through season 1 and season 2. She doesn't show up and help you, like,
I think
attack the Borg.
The answer to that is simple. People like me tuned into this, and we were kind of the target audience for this. So
no, I get that.
Clearly, and I think this is the strength of the season. They clearly limited the knowledge needed of the prior seasons, and I think that's a strength.
But think about this, for example. Remember, I have a complaint about how powerful the Enterprise D is. If they had shown up and helped the Enterprise D, take out the turrets, as they said.
A lot of people would have been confused about who they are, and they would have had to spend a lot of time explaining it. I think that's better without them. But
that for me, who knows what's going on,
right?
Would have made sense.
Say that it's better that they didn't do that for the sake of accessibility.
No, I understand. And the last thing too, because all this is finally coming to me right before we're supposed to end this.
I mean, if we could go for hours and find pros. And cons,
probably.
Honestly,
this is the last thing. No, this is the last thing. So, and I'm losing it as I'm thinking.
That's why I'm kind of like, okay, come on. So, what was I thinking? I'm trying to get it back into my head, and it's like 12:11 at night. So yeah, having the Borg show up, like, I was thinking that the reason that transwarp aperture showed up was because the Borg were trying to distract these Borg and keep them away from, all the action that was going on. Oh, that's what it was. So, and I said this to you. You'll remember this because I DM'd you this when we were talking about it. They could have easily just done season 1 and then did this season, and then it would have been fine. Well, you can always just pretend season 2 doesn't exist, or you can be
season 2 doesn't exist in my mind. But,
in my mind, the other two, both season 1 and 2 don't exist. So there you go.
Well, you kind of need season 1 to get.
I don't need it
season
at all.
3.
Season 3 explains everything that I needed to understand what was going on.
Laser,
really
I'm gonna get you to watch this somehow, even if I have to bribe you or something. I don't know. I'm gonna do it
seriously,
somehow.
I never felt like I couldn't understand what was going on. I never felt like that, and I think that's a strength of it. And honestly, I don't want to watch it because no one has said it's good. The best I've heard about season 1 is that it's okay. No thanks. And that's the best I've heard of it. No thank you.
Well, we're gonna sit down and watch it together at some point. I've decided it. I'll drug you or something. I don't know. As long as you watch Prodigy, I guess that's fine.
Prodigy will happen. You
Yes.
got my word on Prod because I want to see that.
Oh man, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Well,
But
I've heard it's
you
good.
gotta remember that this is. If you've seen, I don't know if you saw Voltron, but it's kind of along the lines of that.
I've seen. You mean the Netflix one?
Yes.
I've seen a few episodes of it. It's good. I always meant to watch more, so that's fine.
It's kind of along the same vein where it's supposed to be for kids, but clearly it's meant for an older audience as well.
That's fine. I actually find that to be a fun mix.
So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to talk about more stuff. You know,
I mean,
not just Star Trek, by the way.
This is a podcast that talks about cartoons. I think I'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. By the way, to kind of relate this to Toonami, TNG is one of the reasons why I watch Toonami. Obviously, Thundercats is the thing that
was the big connection for me, but
right. But you know, the sci-fi vein of it was because of TNG.
Well, you want some real connections. Star Trek wasn't a major inspiration for Gundam. Not kidding.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of crossover. I mean, Trek and anime are both pretty nerdy things, so there's going to be a lot of our audience that probably already Trek fans or at least Trek aware.
Well, I think we've kind of mined this way too much.
I think we have definitely gotten to the end of this Trek.
Ha 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 ha. Anyways, so those of you that have heard this, if you like it, and you want us to do more of these off-topic podcasts, please let me know. You can email me, Paul Pescrillo at ToonamiFaithful.com, or you can even just email the podcast at ToonamiFaithful.com, and just let us know if you want us to do off-topic things, like talking about, you know, anime that's not on Toonami, for example, or talking about, you know, shows like Voltron, for example. If you guys want us to,
or maybe you want us to talk about Star Wars, the other big American sci-fi.
The sky's the limit
franchise.
right now with Toonami being the way that it is. I am more than willing to take episodes and do special things like this if you guys want us to do it. So just make sure you let us know. I mean, you guys pretty much know you can find us on every single podcast app out there. All you got to do is search for Toonami Faithful Podcast, and you can find us on your favorite podcast app, and listen to us there. So please do that. But I'm not going to go through everything that we have. You know where to find us by now. If you're new listeners, the most important thing is to follow us on Twitter at Toonami Podcast, and to like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Toonami Faithful Podcast. So, yeah. Laser, where can they find you, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at LaserKid Prime, and you can find me frequently guesting on fellow Toonami Faithful staffers' V-Lord's podcast universe, full of random podcasts, including the Demon Slayer podcast, which is currently going on for the new season.
He's crazy.
V-Lord is insane, but I love him.
And you can find me on Twitter at Paul Pescrillo. Obviously, I do this podcast, and I do another podcast called Two Strangers, One Podcast, so you can find me there as well. And like I said, you can email me, Paul Pescrillo at ToonamiFaithful.com. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to this very long episode of the Toonami Faithful Podcast. Like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we can do more of these off-topic episodes. And hopefully they won't have long synopsises like I just did.
Well, if we don't do an entire season at a time, I think we'll probably do better.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe we should do half, like Sketch does.
I think that there's a reason that happens.
Yeah, so maybe we'll do it that way differently. Maybe when we do Prodigy, we'll do the first half and then the other half as a different episode. So, But yeah, that's it for this week's Toonami Faithful Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for listening all these years, because we do this for you guys. But that's it for this episode. Peace. We're out.
As a lover of all things samurai and classic Japanese cinema, I was pretty hyped on Trek to Yomi. Your katana-wielding revenge story starts off as most do, with a traumatic childhood event and a choice between doing your duty and protecting your true love. Playing as Hiroki must walk the path of the samurai on a journey to hell and back. Gameplay-wise, there's nothing really groundbreaking here, but immersing yourself in its mythical Japanese lore and amazing throwback style is a real treat. The only downside? It's a brief encounter. You can play through its 7 chapters in about 4 hours. But if you're like me, and 100% completion's your game, you'll be running it back to search down missed collectibles in all 4 endings, happily doubling your time with this amazing homage to Japanese cinema. We give Trek to Yomi an 8 out of 10. Walk the way of the warrior.